All right, so welcome back again to Motivational Mondays on the whew, on the Rhythm and Resilience series that helps people think about what small changes they can add to their life to make a big shift, not only during this COVID-19 opportunity, but for afterwards. And so I'm thinking about the reset and how do I want to move forward. And so that's kind of the whole reason this started. I always think about what do I need to stay well, and I figure if I need it, so do the people that give me the opportunity to guide them. So couple things. Once again, remind yourself to, if so you come on to meet yourself, and I'd love to have you ask any questions in the chat section. And remember, we like to love on our guests at the end of the day. So if you have a little takeaway there, you might encourage you doing that too. So that would be awesome as well. So today my guest is Teri Griege. Teri, we met, maybe 10 years ago or so. And Teri has such a powerful story. She's a triathlon. She's a mom. She's also a nurse. So let's give her a high five. She's in the healthcare system. And Teri's got a great story of really hope and healing and inspiration and motivation. So Teri, welcome to, see, I've got small changes, big shifts in my mind. I'm so used to saying that. Welcome to Rhythm and Resilience. Thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So Teri, I gave a little bit of an intro there. Triathlete, Iron Woman, mom, cancer thriver, nurse. What would you like? What did I leave out of your story there before we get really rolling?
Just an everyday person. How's that? Just like everybody else in the world. Just doing the best I can one day at a time.
So when you think about pre-COVID, what was the biggest challenge you had pre-COVID?
Biggest challenge that I had pre-COVID. See, Michelle, you should have given me these questions before.
Well,
I don't, I'm also a recovering alcoholic and addict. So honestly, that's probably it. I've been sober for 27 years now, but that is the one thing that I covet and protect the most. So I wouldn't say my biggest obstacle or challenge, but probably what's always first and foremost, because I know if I lose that, I lose everything. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't call it a challenge per se, just something that I try and keep. It's just number one in my life, that in my higher power.
Well, it's interesting as we think about this timer, and I think about people that have addictions, mm-hmm. How they're coping through that. My addiction is probably work. I'm trying to break that habit, but it's also, food, for many, many reasons. So how long have you been sober?
March 27th, I celebrated 27 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, so high five. We'll give you a little Zoom applause. And then talk about September of, I'm guessing it was was it 2010, 2011?
I was diagnosed in September of 2009. In
2009. Talk about that day in September when you were diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer.
Right. So for most of you that probably aren't aware of my story. Anyway, I was 48 years old and I was training for an Ironman. If you don't know what an Ironman is, it's a triathlon, swim, bike, run. It's the longest distance. You swim 2.4 miles, you run, or you bike then 112, and then you run a marathon, 26.2. And I had done one the year before in August in Louisville, first one ever, and I came in 5th in my age group, and the 4th place woman qualified for Kona. And she didn't beat me by very much, just about 5 minutes, which over the course of a day is not all that much. So I was training to go back because that was my goal, was to qualify for the World Championship. And as I had been training that year, especially during the summer, because the race was the end of August, I just wasn't feeling 100%, but not really too bad. And I started having some bleeding, and when I would go to the bathroom, and just tired, was getting sick a little bit more than normal. And I went in, I finished, I ran the race. I was 10 minutes slower than the year before, did not qualify. And I had told myself that if I wasn't feeling better, I would go see a doctor. And it so happened that one of my good friends, her husband was a gastroenterologist. And so I finally got up, even though I was a nurse, like Michelle said. I thought I was maybe had an ulcer or something, because had a foot injury I couldn't get to heal, and I was taking a lot of anti-inflammatories. And so anyway, I called my friend's husband, and I said, look, I'm having some bleeding and yada, yada. And he said, you're 48. I think we should go ahead and do a colonoscopy. So 2 weeks after I finished that race, I went in and I woke up from the colonoscopy, and he said there was a huge tumor. And I really had, it depends on where you read it in my chart. It's rectal. It's like right where the colon meets the rectum, which is very hard for me even to say today, because who wants to talk about that part of your body, but I think it's important, because if I have the opportunity to talk to all of you today, 1 in 18 will be diagnosed with colorectal cancer. So I feel like if we have 20 of us on the call, probably save at least one life today. And that's really been my mission now, is to inspire others and save lives. So I woke up and he said, yeah, there was this huge tumor. Of course, I'm making this sound, it was awful. Don't get me wrong. And then he said, let's go do some scans. And I really wasn't thinking that far ahead. I went and had the scans, and then my sister brought me back home. My husband came by the hospital. But anyway, when I got home, I went to, I don't even think we had Google in 2009, but I jumped on the internet and went to the American Cancer Society, and it had stage 1, 2, 3, 4. And at the time when he told me that, I thought, well, this is not any big deal. They'll just kind of go in and cut out that bad part of the colon, reattach it. Maybe at the worst, I would have a temporary ileostomy or something. And it would just kind of be a little hiccup on my screen of life. And I kind of went through looked on the internet, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4, it said a 5-year survival rate of 6%. And stage 4 meant it had moved to another organ. And that evening, the doctor called, and he said it had gone to my liver. And I couldn't even believe it. And I thought, well, the first vision I had was of my daughter, who at the time was 15. And I thought, well, I'm not going to be around for her wedding. And I had this whole vision of her wedding day. And here I am, 10 and a half years later, and here to talk about it, and never gave up that dream of going to do the World Championship. And that's a whole nother story that I don't know if Michelle want me to get into, but I feel extremely blessed. And I just figured, I had what was called the 6% rule. And if somebody had to be in the 6%, why shouldn't it be me? And that's I think one of the reasons why I'm here today is just the mental fortitude and not ever giving up hope.
And so you've done so much, and that's a snapshot of, like you said, 10 and a half years. You've been thriving with colorectal cancer that went metastatic. Not only have you been overcoming that, you've been overcoming your addiction 27 years. You've also started a whole foundation powered by hope. And I'm curious, how much money have you raised for cancer awareness?
Wow. Almost, I'm going to say 1.75 million.
Wow. That deserves this, doesn't it? That's
almost
awesome.
$1 million. So a lot.
Teri, what I remember so many great times with you, but I really remember the young woman who was, I believe she was one of your nurses. What was her first name that we did that Halloween walk run with?
Oh, Nicole.
Nicole.
Yep.
So tell the story. I came to St. Louis and we did the Halloween walk run with Nicole. Uh-huh. And I believe did Becca come with us too? Was Becca on that with us maybe?
It was a woman that you met through Gary that was on a weight loss journey also.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, she's from I know exactly. I don't remember her name. She's in healthcare as well. So talk about Nicole and how you really lift each other's up. So this show's really about, same thing with the podcast, celebrate, guiding, connecting, providing hope. And of course you've got Powered by Hope. And so funny, in the middle of this COVID situation, I'm trying not to call it a crisis anymore. I actually have one of your Powered by Hope coins right by my bed. And I want to tell you, people would ask me the first 2 weeks how I was doing. And I don't have a really good poker face. You know that about me. And I would say I'm on the right side of the ledge because I was on the ledge. And so, but I moved something on my nightstand and that coin fell out. And I was like, okay, God, I hear you. Mm-hmm. So talk about Nicole, and Nicole's just a little tiny bit of the story of how you inspire other people.
Well, in 12 steps in recovery, the 12th step is really about you have to give away in order to keep what you have. And so with sobriety and sponsoring others, I met Nicole was a pharmacy tech where I got my chemotherapy. And she, at the time, African-American young gal, about 30 at the time, and weighed 366 pounds, very big gal. And I had asked all the nurses, I never gave up training and running and biking and swimming all through the chemotherapy. I, of course, had to recovering from surgeries and that. But anyway, I try to encourage others to just move. I think it's very important to just get out there and keep moving, whether maybe your goal is to walk to the mailbox, or maybe it's to run an ultra marathon. It doesn't matter, just move. And so I invited all the nurses to go run this 5K or half marathon at the St. Louis. And the only person that showed up was Nicole, who was 350 pounds. And I thought, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this 5K? And Michelle had this other young woman with her who was had health issues also. And I don't know how she did it, but out of will and just grit, we walked and finished that 5K. And that was, of course, right around Halloween. And so I said to her, I figured it was a call that she was looking for help. And so I asked her, I said, do you want to try and lose weight? Do you want to get healthier? And she said, yes, absolutely. And so here we are. Probably took about 2 years. I helped her emotionally. I helped her physically. I helped her a little bit financially to be able to join a gym. And she lost, she's right around 200. She varies between 190 and maybe 210, right in there. And she calls me her fairy godmother. And I taught her how to ride a bike and do all kinds of cool stuff. And so it has drastically changed her life. She gives way more to me than I've ever been able to give to her. We are still dear friends. I call her, we laugh because I have a son and a daughter, and my son would work out at the same gym as her, and she'd be in spin class, and he'd come by and knock on the window and wave, and everybody would say, oh, who's that, Nicole? And she'd go, oh, that's my brother. And of course, they wouldn't know what to say, because here's this Caucasian kid and this, African-American gal on her spin bike. And so she in the middle of West County in St. Louis. So great sense of humor. And I'm so proud of her. And she goes on to encourage and help others, herself. So it's really been a joy.
Teri, update. Well, these guys are all peering in our conversation, but update me on how, where you're at in your cancer journey.
So I was diagnosed 10 and a half years ago, September 17th. I had radiation. Then I had 5 rounds of heavy chemo. I had a colon and liver resection. They took about 13 inches of my colon. About 70% of my liver was resected. I don't know if you know, the liver is the only organ that regenerates. I talk about God winks a lot in my journey. So that was amazing that it went to my liver. And usually colorectal cancer goes to your liver or your lungs is the first 2 places it heads to. I finished up with 7 more heavy rounds of chemo, and then I started on maintenance chemo. I was on that up until about 2.5 years ago. And in between, I had 2 reoccurrences, one in my liver. And then I had cancer in both of my lungs, and I had bilateral lung resections. About 2.5 years ago, I fell on my bike, and I had a brain bleed because one of the targeted agents that I was on affects your blood vessels. And so I was lucky. I came through that, but we didn't restart the Avastin. I call it liquid gold because it's very expensive, but very helpful. And then about a year after that, I decided I wanted to go climb a mountain and do this crazy bike ride and all this other stuff. And so I took a chemo break. And from there, we scan every 3 months, and I get lab work. And cannot answer, but right now I have some metastatic cells, but I don't have any tumors, and I haven't had any chemo. It'll be 3 years in next month, actually. So a miracle, honestly. And I'm trying to do the best I can and give it all back as much as I can every day.
Well, I think about stage 4, and then I also think the other side, because as you've been watching COVID, you've seen Chris Como's journey about being active, right? How it's helped him kind of heal through this. I wonder how many stage 4 cancer thrivers are there that do Ironman or Ironwomen?
Oh, none.
None.
So I don't think so. I don't know. Not many. How's that? Not many, but.
And how many Ironmen have you done in the past 10 years?
Well, I've done 3 total.
Okay.
So yeah, I never gave up that dream of going to the World Championship, and I sent I don't know if any of you have seen the Kona World Championship on television. It used to be on channel NBC, used to air it the first part of December, and they would have this like 3-hour special, and they would show the pros, and then they tell 2 or 3, 4 or 5 inspirational stories from around the world. So like Dick and Rick Hoyt, the father that pushed his son through an Ironman, and I don't know, there's famous stories that they've covered, and I sent my story in, and they chose me. And so 2011, I did the World Championship while on chemotherapy, and finished. That's how my mantra, Powered by Hope, came to be, because I had almost 40 friends and family go to Hawaii with me, and I wanted them all in t-shirts. And I thought, what can I put on these t-shirts? And in the middle of the night, I kind of woke up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm powered by hope. And so I had all these t-shirts made, and that became the name of a little foundation that I have. And somebody wrote a book about my story. And at any time we feel like one of the ways we fundraise money for cancer research is a bike ride here in St. Louis. And so I field a team. We're called Powered by Hope. We had 360 riders last year. If there's a 5K or I don't know, we just go out and do a lot in the community, and everybody wears their Powered by Hope gear, and kind of a way to spread a great message. So, and now everybody talks about hope. Yeah, they kind of kid me, and they call me the Hope Lady, and I'm like, well, everybody's a Hope Lady now, or Hope Gentleman, whatever. But yeah, so the acronym for HOPE, HOPE, is How Ordinary People Endure, which I think is so important about today. And then the other acronym is Helping Other People Every Day. So if you maybe take one little bit from today, maybe it'll be those 2 things, around hope.
Would you say those again? Eleanor, would you make sure we write these down, and we'll put these in they'll be our quote for the day. I needed a quote for today, and there you go. Say it one more time.
Sure. Hope, How Ordinary People Endure, and then Helping Other People Every Day.
So can we quote you on those, Teri?
Oh, sure.
Okay, great. We'll quote those, and we'll send you a little love with that. Let's shift a little bit, and we'll come back to the story. You continue to inspire me, and I love that when I ring you up. My friends are so gracious. I'm like, hey, would you do this with me? Okay, sure, why not? I'm actually kind of stuck at home. So, but anyhow, let's talk about COVID, and how's it challenging you during this time? What's the most challenging thing you're going through during this quarantine life?
Probably socially. I'm a very social person and used to gathering groups of people together just to either have fun or support one another. So that's been really my biggest challenge, is not being out there amongst people. Really, I kind of miss that interaction, which was not me pre-cancer. There's before cancer and after cancer, before cancer, I would have wanted nothing more than to, kind of isolate and be alone. And now I'm having to get used to just being by myself again. But I will say I lost my mom in the middle of February, and she was an amazing force in my life. And I am so grateful that she didn't pass in the midst of this, that she wasn't home alone in the midst of this. And so I think I always try and look for the silver linings, and that's just one of them. But she had a major stroke, and I can remember my sister called me, and I got over to her house, and they were closing the doors of the ambulance. And I thought to myself, if that would have happened in the last few weeks, we wouldn't have been there with her. That would have been the end. And so, and I look at these people that are in active treatment right now for cancer, or God forbid, are being diagnosed today with cancer, and the obstacles and what they're facing. So I just am so grateful that, I have my health and family, and, I get to be on a call like this today with all of you, and just try and shift to the positive in it.
So as you've talked to some of your friends, because I know you're a spokesperson for the colorectal cancer, as you talk to people you've met all over the world, what has been some of the guidance they've been giving you?
Let's see. Oh, I can't say anybody's really offered me any guidance, really, to be honest with you. If anything, it's been more of, I think one of the things that I've learned is that a lot of the things that we think or we do or we feel, we think that they're very individual, that we're the only ones that are thinking this or going through it or feeling that way. And the truth is that we're, everybody is kind of going through the same thing. So it helps to really be honest and share kind of the difficulties and what's going on and kind of the craziness. So probably just, knowing that people are facing and thinking the same thoughts that I am is what's helped.
So when you think about your recovery, and you mentioned that's the greatest thing and that you really covet, what kind of wisdom would you share or guidance would you share with our listeners today? Because we have a couple hundred people doing this process with us. We have about 20 people on the call right now. What type of guidance somebody who's struggling with addiction? Not only have you had stage 4 cancer, but you had this addiction before that.
Well, people ask me, I used to do a ton of public speaking and tell my story. And it was really the story around cancer, but the story I'm most proud of is my recovery. And the 12 steps are just a fantastic guide for living. And, Michelle, like even in your book that you wrote, what is it? Big shifts, small changes?
Small changes, big shifts.
Big shifts, okay. I mean, a lot of I think a lot of the messages are always the same. They're just delivered a little differently. Mm-hmm. So when the student's, ready, the teacher appears, but basically they're all similar principles. And so many of the things that I learned in the 12 steps, I was able to apply to, getting through cancer, really for any adversity. Cancer is just an adversity, right? So this pandemic that we're going through today, it's an adversity in all of our lives. And basically, realizing that I'm not in control. I have a higher power that I have trust and faith in turning it over. I can't. He can. I think I'll let him. Breaking down things into small pieces, like today. All we have is just today, and sometimes it might be just this hour, so that I don't get overwhelmed and can't feel like I just can't move forward. I had a long conversation, a half-hour conversation with my sponsor this morning. So having others to lean on, that we're not navigating through this alone. There's power in numbers, and just not being able to. I think I've always learned that if I'm honest and I can kind of I don't want to use the word dump, but, share with what I'm having, maybe my fears, my concerns. It seems to disarm those things also. So having other people in your life that you trust, that you can share these things with, to disarm a lot of it, is very helpful too. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I think about this whole Rhythm and Resilience series is really about how do we collectively come together to help shift the consciousness around how we're experiencing this, or at least provide hope.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, celebrate, guide, connect, provide hope. And so you're definitely doing that. And I love how you brought the 12 steps in. Some people may or may not know my mother was married 4 times by the time I was 17, and her first husband, the one I spent most of my life with, he's actually still in my life, even though he and my mother divorced at 12, was an alcoholic. And when I was when I was 18 or 19, maybe 20. When I was 20, she had his first year of sobriety, and he was in California. I happened to be in California. I lived in Kansas at the time, and I got to go with him when he got his first coin. Or is it a coin? What's it called? Mm-hmm. Coin? It's medallion. So to get a chance to go and witness that with him, and I've been to Al-Anon and ACOA, because as a young person, you pick up some habits and patterns going through that. I actually tell a little bit more of the story with Barbie Hill. We did a joint interview on April 1st of 2020, where we talk about the 12 steps of addiction. So very familiar. And I love how you said it's helping you navigate this time. It's really helping you navigate this and taking it one moment at a time. I really enjoy it. By the way, to our people tuning in with us today, now's a great time to ask your questions as we continue our conversation. And Linda has a question right now are you training for anything right now?
Well, everything's been canceled. So here's kind of my, it's a good thing. But I've done all the big races that I wanted to do in my life. I've been able, in the last 10 years, to do the World Championship Ironman. I've done the World Championship half Ironman twice. I've completed the 6 world major marathons: Boston, Chicago, New York, Berlin, Tokyo, and London. So I have to, when I pick things that I want to go do, it's more about if I haven't done it before, and what's the purpose behind it? Is it to raise awareness of a cause? Is it to raise money for a cause? Is it something that's going to physically challenge me, that's within my realm? So I said I wasn't going to do any more half Ironman, but I'm starting to feel really pretty good. So I signed up to do, and I picked this one. It's in Memphis. It's a brand new one, and it will, the proceeds will go to St. Jude's Hospital. So that was one of the reasons why I chose that. I just did an ultra 50K. I've never run a 50K before, in late December. So I'm kind of coming off of that. And I don't know. I'm waiting. The American Cancer Society contacted me and asked me if I had any interest in doing 7 marathons in 7 continents in 7 days and raising quite a bit of money for them. And so I'm debating on that one. I don't know. I don't know if I can, I don't know. So that's something that's in the back of my mind.
Well, I'm happy to let you throw that off the plate. No, what you said there that really stuck with me. Okay. And this is going to be one of the gifts, I believe, of COVID, is why. Why am I doing something? What's the purpose of this? I remember having this conversation with myself years ago. When I first started practicing, I'd get asked to be on boards, and you say yes, because, for me, I just wanted to feel important, and I wanted somebody to love me. And so after several years of being involved, I remember being at a conference, at a concert, and I was sitting there. And if you know me, I really know nothing about music. I'm not very good at music. I have maybe 10 songs downloaded on my iPhone. It's a whole nother conversation. But I remember sitting there going, Michelle, this is not your passion. Why are you here? And so I'm hoping that one of the gifts that a lot of us will take away is why? Why am I doing this? Why do I feel compelled to do? Why am I saying yes? Is it really a yes, or should it really be a no? I think the most important thing we do on a daily basis, besides be connected to something greater than ourselves, is to have the right yeses and the right nos for me. So Teri, another question from Linda, and we're going to laugh about this afterwards. Have you changed how and what you eat since your diagnosis? Let me add what you drink too.
Oh my goodness. So that is that, do as I say, don't do as I do. I don't know. So that is my weak link. I am not very much into nutrition. I used to say I try and live a life of moderation, but that's not true in the exercise realm. And no, I am not good about nutrition. I love Diet Pepsi. And I love anything that has sugar in it. And I know sugar supposedly feeds cancer, but some reason I'm still here. Yeah, not so good at that.
Well, I think it's real. And I think the power of the mind and the spirit to really conquer is pretty amazing. Once again, this is a great time to ask questions as we continue our conversation. Has there been a habit that you picked up during this reset that you want to continue?
Gosh, I can't, nothing really hits me. I will say that I'm very much more efficient when I go to the store because I don't want to go any more than I have to go. And I think I've learned that, we really can get by with a lot less. And so that's been probably the most interesting. Just if I have a couple, like I had to go get lab work and things drawn. If I go out, if I'm going to do that, then I go to the grocery store and pick up my medicine. And just efficiency, I think is, and that really we can get by with a whole lot less, except toilet paper.
I know, I'm like, okay, you know how you kind of aren't paying attention and you have like 8 squares. You're like, really, do you need 8 squares? So anyhow, that's kind of funny. Oddly enough, since I own a building and we typically have quite a bit of toilet paper because it's amazing how much toilet paper you go through in our business. So here's a fascinating question. One of the gifts that people have said, or one of the things they've noticed, is more people are active. Mm-hmm. And bike shops are actually really busy right now. And so talk about what you're noticing and maybe what your hope is around that whole aspect of activity.
Well, I think it's fantastic. So they just closed the county parks about a week ago. And I do get out and ride and run on my own a lot. And we've had great weather here. So I've been in the parks and out and about almost every day until recently. But it's amazing the number of people that are out now and the families that are together. It's absolutely fantastic. And, people on bike, it takes all I can not to want to say, come join my team for this bike ride. And, but it's absolutely incredible. But I do have to laugh because I was telling my one friend, I'm like, I have never seen more couples making out in the park than it's kind of like you say, don't get close, and everybody gets close, just like we're all these little kids, and, don't go to the park and everybody's going to the park. And, so anyway, I think it's been fantastic. I hope it opens up and people realize that, this is something they should continue to do and spend so much more time outside and together and moving, period.
So I do yoga occasionally, not near enough for all of you out there wondering. Yes, I've got work to do, but my yoga person says motion is lotion. Mm-hmm. Motion is lotion. I'm like, you know what? That is so true. How can we move more? So Teri, speaking of families, and you actually, this is my other question. What I love having conversation because my spirit is just guiding me, and I'm not sure who needs to hear this. Maybe I do. You said you were pretty much an introvert before cancer, maybe a little bit more of an extrovert now, or a lot more of an extrovert now. What was the shift?
Gosh, I think you'll find this with a lot of cancer survivors or anybody that has, maybe had to face death. I really just decided, I don't know how much time I have here on this earth. And it really doesn't, I always tell myself, I call it leveling the playing field, because just because I've been diagnosed with, late stage colorectal cancer, it doesn't mean that, I have any less or more of a chance of waking up tomorrow than anybody else. We can, anything. I always say I could get killed going across the street to the grocery store, right? So make the most of every single day that I have here. And that's, I think, probably the thing that has brought me out of my shell, and it's just, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that I don't care, because I do care, but I'm much more willing to put myself out there. And, if somebody wants to judge me or do whatever they want to say, or it just kind of rolls off my skin now. God has led me, and I'm ready. I'm out there.
Great. How's your family holding up during this time? Where's your daughter and son at?
They're actually, my son is not here. He was working from home here. They're doing great. We've been able to weather this very, very well. So, my husband is in essential business, so he's been, thank you, God, been going into work every day still. So, yeah, that's all good, but everybody's great. Thank you.
Well, great. Well, Eleanor has a question. Talk about your mindset with training and completing those races, especially a 50K. How many miles is a 50K?
About 33.
An ultra. Okay. So I just had to ask that. And then how does it cross over with your story on addiction and cancer diagnosis with your mindset?
So I think, in training for Ironman, they say it's a 3-discipline sport: swim, bike, run. But I really think it's 4, actually 5. I would say the 4th is nutrition. And I would say that the 5th is training. I call it training your brain. And it's just all about, not only do you have to train yourself physically, but you have to train your brain to endure, to stay focused, or whatever it is in front of you that you need to do. So if it's a long, like the Ironman or the cancer or whatever it may be, I mean, it's all about breaking things down into portions that I can wrap my head around and get through, whether it's, the swim portion, the bike portion, the run portion, the radiation, the chemo, the surgery, and then breaking those things down into further little pieces, and just taking that big triangle from the bottom and, coming, or the top, however you want to say, and being able to put it into smaller pieces that I'm able to come up with a plan and deal with, and ask for help, and all those kinds of things.
Kind of chunking it down. Sounds like you're chunking it down. Mm-hmm. I meant to start with this, and I'm going to kind of look through the chat here just to kind of, and then I'm going to come back to a couple more questions with Teri, and I'd love to have your questions. From Kylie, and I meant to start it this way, so hopefully tomorrow I'll remember to start with a grounding exercise. Her tea bag said today, "May this day be the day to lead us to peace, to happiness, and to joy." Has to be a good day. And Teri, you're definitely leading us to some peace and just a reminder to chunk it down. So thank you for that. Diane, you got to join us a couple times last week, and I'm so glad that you were able to do that, and you got some goodness out of it, especially Crystal. She's kind of a character. Linda, you mentioned about hearing Shemaine and understanding our body's response and to the outside world. And what I keep thinking about from a holistic perspective, and I think about what am I doing different on a day-to-day basis than I was doing before. And I'm mindful about, being extremely mindful about changing my clothes the minute I get in my house, or showering before I come home from work, or washing my hands, wiping down my car. But I really just have amplified what I was already doing. I've amplified what I was already doing. And so I'm hoping that as you get new habits, that you just continue to amplify those during a time of crisis or the situation. Bridget, thanks for your nice full thoughts. I really appreciate that. All right. And I can't remember if it's Sarah. Sarah, I can't remember your first name. I'm trying to pull it out of my memory here. Let's see. I love that you said we don't have to be productive. We're all just kind of responding, and we're just all living this thing called life. And Britt Frank really talked about giving yourself some grace last week. Mary mentioned about having permission to basically feel blasé and go through it. And Teri, I think you mentioned that is maybe instead of having bad weeks or bad days, you have bad moments and you're like, okay, how do I shift in this moment? What are some of the gifts? And Dr. Marie, I see you, and I know this hits home with you. We got Dr. Marie on the phone who lost her husband to cancer, who is a physician as well. Speaking of a physician, Teri, talk a little bit about your healthcare days, being a nurse, and aren't you just proud of our caregivers right now? How do you just not say, holy moly, going in every single day? I was watching a story on CNN as I was drinking some soup before I started this thing, and the nurse had lost his life. Talk about how that makes you feel of our brothers and sisters out there on the front lines.
Wow. Well, it really initially brought me back to the day when I first started working in the unit. We had AIDS had just kind of become prevalent. Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of AIDS patients in our ICU because there was a doctor locally that kind of got well known to, was comfortable treating AIDS patients. And this was at the cutting edge. I mean, where it was a very difficult time. So it kind of brought back a lot of those memories because we didn't really know, how it was transmitted, what risk we were at the time in treating them. And these were very, very sick patients that had to be intubated and lots of secretions and things like that. So I'm not in the hospital presently, but I understand, I think to some degree what they're going through. And it's truly such a sacrifice that they, that they're feeling called to do this, and that they, for the most part, want to do it. And they're risking their lives, their health, to take care of others. And, thankfully they're willing to do it. So I don't know how we'll ever be able to thank them. And this could be an ongoing thing for quite a while. So it'll be, and I did feel the call. I mean, they were asking for retired nurses and physicians to come back in. But because of my health status, it wouldn't be a prudent thing to do. But I did feel the call that I really wanted to would go back.
I'm thinking about when I first started my career too. I had several HIV patients, and I'm glad you brought that up because I kind of forgot about that. Even though I witnessed, I remember I had a young gal
today. I mean, there's the hope in all of that. I mean, it was very much in the very, very beginning, very much like what we're feeling today on a little bit smaller scale, of course, but still the fear and all of this. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good reminder. So I would love in the chat section for all of you to talk about what medicine you're sharing right now. I believe we all have medicine, and I'm curious what medicine you're all sharing with your tribe to help inspire them through this time. I'd love to hear that. But I'm going to give that to Teri. Teri, you have lots of medicine to share. What medicine, what are you doing to share your medicine on a daily basis? And what do you think your best medicine is?
Michelle, you do not have any easy questions here. This is, I feel, and then, I guess I'll just have to state the obvious. I think my medicine is hope. And that's, I like to think that I'm a beacon of hope. It's just kind of in my DNA now. And hope is not, to me, and it never has been, hope that we would find this cure for cancer tomorrow, or hope that we're going to find, yes, of course, that's the great hope, right? Or that we can find the vaccine or how to treat this pandemic that we're in right now. But truly the hope is, how can I make the best of today? And that's where my hope lies. What can I do to make today the best day? So when you called me last week and said, hey, would you be part of this,
Rhythm and Resilience. I finally got it.
Yeah, Rhythm and Resilience, these podcasts or video casts that you're putting together Of course I said yes, because, I'll walk away feeling so much more fulfilled today. So yeah, it's really, how can I make the best of today is my medicine.
Well, I think we all have medicine to give. And so to all of you, either listening to this live or listening to it afterwards, think about what medicine can I share today, whether it's hope, whether it's peace, whether it's joy. Well, Vanessa, it's laughter and good stories versus the doom and gloom. Staying calm, Linda talks about staying calm, and people help kind of filter. You got to kind of filter the noise. And we've shared on a couple of the other Zoomcasts that I had just interviewed Dr. Perlmutter, Austin Perlmutter, who talks about the brain. He's an MD and talks about really managing your time. How much time are you allocating to the media, and how much, what's your intention? And my intention with this rhythm and resilience is to help you through this reset. But as Teri said, I'm getting as much out of this, and I appreciate how some of you are sharing with your friends and writing me notes and saying it's the first time. Last week we had John O'Leary on last Monday, Teri, one of your friends as well, and it's the first time you maybe had tears of joy versus tears of fear during this time. So that's what we're here to do. We're helped to share. So thank you for letting me know, and thank you for sharing with your friends. I'm grateful for that. Teri, what have I not asked you that you'd like to share today? Besides, how can people connect with you? And I'd love for them we'll put in the show notes, Eleanor, your video from the Kona Ironman. That's a powerful story.
I'm just happy to be here. I guess I talked about inspiring and saving lives. So I guess if I have one thing that, and maybe it seems repetitive or not, but if you're over 50 and you haven't had a colonoscopy, and actually they recommend at 45, you get a baseline colonoscopy, please go get one. I see Vanessa's got her thumbs up. Because colon cancer is the one cancer that is preventable, treatable, and beatable if it's caught early. And find out if you have a family history. That's another huge thing, because nobody wants to talk about this kind of cancer. And so, if I can just spend a second, or if you're having symptoms, if there's change in when you're going to the bathroom or blood or anything like that, I was embarrassed. Please go seek or call a doctor and tell them what's happening. And Eleanor, you look like you're pretty young. I don't know, maybe, but this disease, colorectal cancer, is skyrocketing in the people in their 20s and 30s. And a lot of physicians think that, you're too young. Well, they're not. And they're being diagnosed, and they're being diagnosed at very late stages. So if I, could just always, if I have a few minutes to just kind of educate and talk about that, I really believe will save a lot of lives. And the reason I really am adamant about this is I was 48. I have two sisters that are 13 and 14 years older than me. So they were in their early 60s and had not had colonoscopies. So 2 weeks after me, they both went, and one had precancerous polyps and my other sister had stage 3 colon cancer. So I call myself an accidental advocate. But initially I saved my sister's life. And so I just think that's what I'm supposed to be out here doing. So that would be it.
And I'm going to tag on to that. I think it's a good time to also just take care of your digestive system. We talk about it from your mouth to your anus is your digestive system, and hydration is really good. That's important right now. Make sure you're hydrating. Make sure you're eating live food to kind of help scrub out the colon and help kind of keep it clean so you don't have a lot of mud buildup. So I think there's some great prevention ideas. As Teri mentioned, make sure you do your screening, but at the same time, also do what you can to take care of that hose by eating the right foods, maybe taking some probiotics or eating some prebiotic foods like fermented foods like pickles and sauerkraut and things like that. That's a good idea as well.
Chocolate cake, chocolate cookies.
Okay, I did go to our friends here. We'll give a couple shout outs to a couple people. And Zen Donkey Farms, by the way, is giving health shots to the first responders. And so we'll put that link in there if you feel like you want to. People say to me, Michelle, I just want to do something. What can I do? And we'll send you a little link where you could buy some shots, and they'll take it to the first responders with something you want to do. But I stopped today over at Enjoy. It's a vegan, gluten-free restaurant, but they did have, Teri, chocolate cake, chocolate brownie, gluten and dairy free. I did bring some of that home for some brownie points with Crystal, just so you know. So we all got to take care of our little tiny vices there. So we're going to wrap up the show now. If you'd like to give some love to Teri, feel free to do that in the chat notes now. Hey, Eleanor, ask me about the chat notes afterwards before we hang up, okay? Teri, thank you for taking time today. You can go to poweredbyhope.org and learn more about Teri and what she's doing. It's in the show notes, as well as you can go to her website, Teri Griege, TeriGriege.com. I'd love for you to follow her on social media too. She posts some wonderful things. So Teri, thank you for taking time today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, and very nice meeting all of you.
So here's some love for you, Teri. I'd like to end this Zoom on how you inspire me, but I want to share with you that some of the messages in the chat is, of course, it's very calm. People feel a little bit more hope. It's just a wonderful message. But what I want to say to you, Teri, is first of all, thank you for always saying yes. You know, I'm like, hey, Teri, can you do this? Or I'm going to be driving through St. Louis. Can you try to catch up? And I would rather, sometimes I fly into St. Louis and I see your picture on the billboards, and I'll text you and say, hey, I'm flying through. I want to say thank you for being a champion for the message that we have and for giving me hope. And today, for helping, so you're going to save a life today, but mostly you're going to help save a moment today so people aren't fretting near as much about the future, and that they just take it one day at a time. And possibly there's someone on this call today that needs to go get help for an addiction. And hopefully they will have the courage to do that. And so I'm grateful for your friendship. I'm grateful for you saying yes. And I'm grateful to all of you for showing up today. And I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And we have a local Kansas City businesswoman joining us tomorrow, Haley Bland Walsh. And she's got some fire in the belly. And she actually had a commercial that was on at the EPSI Awards about transgender. But she has a gym in Kansas City called City Gym. And so we'll be chatting about her rhythm and resilience during this universal reset. So all of you have a wonderful day, and I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Blessings to all of you.